Zach Sealer needs a new contract. So you're saying to Zach Sealer, no.
No, I'm not saying that because Zach Sealer's been a baller and Zach Sealer is elite at his position. I don't believe Jonnu Smith is a tight end.
PD, you're not paying Zach Sealer a contract extension?
I ain't paying nobody nothing. And that's what Brandon Shore is making be known. He ain't paying nobody nothing. You get what you got. We've already given you you maxed out the credit card. You've already maxed it out. Okay, this is your team. This is what you asked for. Go to war, win with them. If you can't, we'll bring somebody else in that can. That's what I think is happening in Miami right now. And another thing with Jonnu, this whole situation, I may be the only one on an island, but I'm used to that. I don't think Jonnu is as good as his play was last year. McDaniel kind of explained this to everybody last year. I told everybody he was never going to change the offensive system last year. He just wanted additional weapons. So when teams game plan against Tyreek and Waddle, he has another option. That's why they went the Odell route and the Jonnu route. Okay. Now here's the deal with that. What people didn't notice is guess who became a primary target on first reads? Not overly a lot, but more than usual. Jonnu Smith. He became so whenever you got that third and critical and the defense is doubling Tyreek and focusing on Waddle, Jonnu was wide open in the seam, wide open in the slant, wide open slipping out. He was a recipient of what teams were trying to do to game plan against the other guys, in my opinion, and he benefited from that. But holistically, it did not improve the offense.
That's true.
When you don't focus on Tyreek Hill being that dude and you want to go skip that and say, hey, they're focusing on them so much, especially the good teams, focusing on those guys. I need that third option. That was the focus of the offense last year, that additional option. Jonnu became that, but we did it at the expense of Tyreek and Waddle suffering. And some people will say, no, they suffered because Tua was out. It's not quite true. They did suffer when Tua was out, but even when Tua was in, their numbers were down compared to previous years' production with Tua and Tyreek.
I would also like to point out that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were impacted by injury last year. Not only were they impacted by Tua being out, they were impacted by injury. And the player who disproportionately, in my opinion, got more targets than he deserved was Devon Achane on all those checkdowns. But
I thought we knew that going into the season he was going to be a more vocal point in the passing game.
We did, but did he need how many? Well, Jesus Christ!
No. I know what you mean. He was like it was an extra 20% little tack on. But I think this is a Brandon Shore situation. I really do. I think he's just trying to
give him power.
Well, he's the lead negotiator. He's the one that actually
but he answers to somebody else, TD. He's not the one who decides you get this much. The Dolphins are telling him.
I'm not talking about how much per se they get, but extensions. I thought that was his primary job on this. Wasn't he the guy that said we shouldn't do Tua until McDaniel came over the top?
No.
Well, this is what was reported.
I don't know who reported that.
This was okay. Well, I'll
Brandon Shore does what he's told. And that has been told to me directly when I criticized him.
Well, I'll send you the report on it. This actually came out literally that Brandon Shore was against actually extending Tua Tagovailoa, and McDaniel went higher up and they made that decision. So I just think the article.
McDaniel did go to Steve Ross when it got to the point where it was impacting the team and the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. When he was doing the hold-in thing or the every other day.
And he needed to show us a sign of support to Tua in this regard. Now, was Brandon Shore holding it up? No. That was Chris Greer. Brandon Shore reports to Chris Greer. The HNIC.
So you're saying
it was Chris Greer. You know what that is, TD. The HNIC is Chris Greer.
Hockey Night in Canada?
I don't know what that is.
I know what it is. I ain't saying it.
Hockey Night in Canada, HNIC, Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah. And that's Chris Greer. And despite his passive personality, everybody reports to him. Everybody should report